Chapter 39 or Book 3 Part 10. So then the next problem, make Kasahara's point of view, number 2. Hi again, Mr. Wind-Up Bird. Have you thought about where I am and what I'm doing the way I told you at the end of my last letter? Were you able to imagine anything at all? Oh well, I guess I'll just go under the assumption that you couldn't figure out a thing, which I'm sure is true. So let me just get it over with and tell you right from the start. I'm working in, let's say, a certain factory, a big factory. It's in a certain provincial city, or should I say, in the mountains on the outskirts of a certain provincial city that faces the Sea of Japan. Don't let the word factory fool you, though. It's not what you'd imagine, one of those macho places full of big, high-tech machines grinding away and conveyor belts running and smoke pouring out of smokestacks. It's big, alright, but the grounds are spread out over a wide area and it's bright and quiet. It doesn't produce any smoke at all. I never imagined the world had such widely spread out factories. The only other factory I've ever seen was the Tokyo Caramel factory our class visited on a field trip in elementary school, and all I remember is how noisy and cramped it was, and how people were just slaving away with gloomy expressions on their faces. So to me, a factory was always like some illustration you'd see in a textbook under Industrial Revolution. The people working here are almost all girls. There's a separate building nearby, a laboratory where men in white coats work on product development, wearing very serious looks on their faces. But they make up a very small proportion of the whole. All the rest are girls in their late teens or early 20s, and maybe even 70% of those live in the domes inside the company compound, like me. Commuting to this place from the town every day by bus or car is a real pain, and the domes are real nice. The buildings are new. The rooms are all singles. The food is good, and they let you choose what you want. The facilities are complete, and the room and board is cheap for all that. There's a heated pool and a library, and you can do things like tea ceremony and flower arranging if you want, but I don't want. And they even have an active program of sports teams. So a lot of girls who start out commuting end up moving into a dorm. All of them return home on weekends to eat with their families or go to the movies or go on dates with their boyfriends and stuff. So on Saturday, the place turns into an empty ruin. There aren't too many people like me, without a family to go home to on weekends. But like I said before, I like the big hollow empty feeling of the place on weekends. I can spend the day reading or listening to music with the volume turned up, or walking in the hills, or like now, sitting at my desk and writing to you, Mr. Wind-Up Bird. The girls who work here are all locals, which means farmers' daughters. Well, maybe not every single one, but they're mostly happy, healthy, optimistic, hard-working girls. There aren't many big industries in this district, so before girls would go to the city to find jobs when they graduated from high school, that meant the guys left in town couldn't find anybody to marry, which only added to the depopulation problem. So then the town got together and offered businesses this big tract of land to set up a factory, and the girls didn't have to leave. I think it was a great idea. I mean, look, they got somebody like me to come all the way out here. So now, when they graduate from high school or drop out like me, the girls all go to work at the factory and save their pay and get married when they're old enough, and quit their jobs and have a couple of kids and turn into fat walruses that all look alike. Of course, there are a few who go on working here after they get married, but most of them quit. This should give you a pretty good idea of what this place is like, okay? So now the next question for you is this. What do they make in this factory? Hint, you and I once went out on a job connected with it. Remember? We went to the Ginza and did a survey. Oh, come on. Even you must have figured it out by now, Mr. Wind-Up Bird. That's it. I'm working in a wig factory. Surprised? I told you before how I got out of that high-class hotel, jail, country school after 6 months and just hung around at home like a dog with a broken leg. Then all of a sudden, the thought of the wig company's factory popped into my head. I remembered something my boss at the company had once said to me. more as a joke than anything, about how they never had enough girls for the factory and they'd hire me anytime I wanted to go work there. He even showed me a pamphlet for the place, and I remember sort of thinking it looked like a really cool factory and I wouldn't mind working there. My boss said the girls all did hand labor, implanting hairs into the toe piece. A hairpiece is a very delicately made product, not like some aluminum pot you can stamp out 1, 2, 3. You have to plant little bunches of real hair very, very carefully, one bunch at a time, to make a quality hairpiece. Doesn't it make you faint just thinking about it? I mean, how many hairs do you think there are on a human head? You have to count them in hundreds of thousands. And to make a wig, you have to plant them all by hand, the way they plant seedlings in a rice field. None of the girls here complain about the work, though. They don't mind because this region is in the snow country, where it has always been the custom for the farm women to do detailed handiwork to make money during the long winters. That's supposedly why the company chose this area for its factory. To tell you the truth, I've never minded doing this kind of hand labor. I know I don't look it, but I'm actually pretty good at sewing. I always impressed my teachers. You still don't believe me? It's true, though. That's why it never occurred to me that I might enjoy spending part of my life in a factory in the mountains, keeping my hands busy from morning to night and never thinking about anything upsetting. I was sick of school, but I hated the thought of just hanging around and letting my parents take care of me. And I'm sure they hated the thought of that too. And I didn't have any one thing that I was dying to do. So the more I thought about it, the more it seemed that the only thing I could do was to go to work in this factory. I got my parents to act as my sponsors, and my boss to give me a recommendation. They liked my survey work. I passed my interview at company headquarters, and the very next week I was all packed. Not that I took anything more than my clothes and my boombox. I got on the bullet train by myself, transferred to a cute little train that goes up into the hills, and made it all the way to this nothing little town. But it was like I came to the other side of the earth. I was so bummed out when I got off the train. I figured I had made a terrible mistake. But finally, no. I've been here 6 months now without any special problems, and I feel settled in. I don't know what it is, but I've always been interested in wigs. Or maybe I should say I've always been attracted to them, the way some guys are attracted to motorcycles. You know, I hadn't really been aware of it before, but when I went out to do that market research and I had a chance to see all those bald men, or what the company calls men with a thinning problem, it really struck me what a lot of guys like that there are in the world. Not that I have personal feelings one way or another toward men who are bald or have a thinning problem. I don't especially like them or dislike them. Take you, for example, Mr. Wind-Up Bird. Even if your hair were thinner than it is now, and it will be before too long, my feelings toward you would absolutely not change in any way. The only strong feeling I have when I see a man with a thinning problem is that sense I think I mentioned to you before of life being worn away. Now that is something I'm really interested in. I once heard that people reach the peak of their growing at a certain age. I forget whether it was 19 or 20 or what, after which the body starts to wear out. If that's the case, then it's just one part of the wearing away of the body for the hair to fall out and grow thinner. There's nothing strange about it at all. Maybe it's normal and natural. If there's any problem in all this, it's the fact that some guys go bald young and others never go bald, even when they're old. I know if I were bald, I'd think it was unfair. I mean, it's a part of the body that really sticks out. Even I understand how they feel, and the problem of thinning hair has nothing to do with me. In most cases, the person losing his hair is in no way responsible for whether the volume of hair he loses is greater or less than anybody else's. When I was working part-time, my boss told me that the genes determine 90% of whether a person is going to go bald or not. A person who has inherited a gene for thinning hair from his grandfather and father is going to lose his hair sooner or later, no matter what he does to prevent it. Where there is a will, there's a way just doesn't apply to baldness. When the time comes for the gene to stand up and say, all right now, let's get this show on the road. That is, if genes can stand up and say, let's get this show on the road, the hair has no choice but to start falling out. It is unfair, don't you think? I know I think it is. So now you know I'm out here in this factory, far away from where you are, working hard every day. And you know about my deep personal interest in the 2P and its manufacture. Next, I'm going to go into somewhat greater detail on my life and work here. Nah, forget it. Bye bye.